Evening, everyone. Evening. Big up to know this is Jester. Thank you, mate, for sending your crew over. Yeah, well, I'm not going to talk about last night. I think everybody in the world's talked that one to death. You know, we all know what happened, and there's plenty of streams have talked about it. So we're going to move straight on into when we actually could play football. Big up, Shane. Right, Kenny, how are you doing, mate?
I'm all good. This is the favourite part of my show because, as you know, as much as I love that sunny day in May, where traditionally we always prefer to wear yellow shirts and get ourselves down Wembley Way. The best team is the team that wins the league. There's no dispute of who's the best. You become a worldwide club when you win the Champions League, but you become a fear club when you become dominant over 42 games up until 1993, up until 1996, and then it became 38 games. But either way, no one could dispute you're the best. That's why this show is poignant. And we've been the best team in the country at least 13 times.
True, absolutely true. DJ, you know, you were there last night along with Kenny, and we're not going to go into it.
No. Enough said. I think everyone knows how it's going. So, put that one to bed last night, and I mean, what can we say? Another missed opportunity to make it easier for us to get into a major competition. But there you go. It happens, but it happens time and time again under this manager, unfortunately. But we'll move on. I mean, this is always a nice channel, Jez, and I say it all the time because it takes you away from the mess that we're currently in. And it's lovely to talk about the history of this great football club. And I look forward to it, man. I look forward to it.
Can you play piano, Kenny? Question in the there. Muted.
The only thing I was able to play was Doggy D. If anyone when you do first of your piano lessons, you should be able to play Doggy D.
Never had
piano when you play the piano. Anyone who played the piano, do you remember Doggy D? That's all I remember doing. And even then, it was a long time since I played Doggy D. Apart from that, I know where the keys are, but I don't play.
Oh dear. Shane. All that happened last night was everything we've been saying will happen. Zero surprises this end. Anyway, let's get into this. Let's get into it. I've put a lot of facts and figures down today. And interestingly, I noticed. Well, we all know this. We went through, and we're going to come in to talk about it, but 21 years, guys, 21 years currently that we haven't won a league title. Longest time in Arsenal history since we won our first Division 1 title in 1930-31 season. And we had a couple of barren periods, but 21 years, gentlemen, 21 years. Anyway, 21. Let's get into it. Sorry, 31. We played 42 games, won 28, drew 10, lost 4, scored 127 goals. Against we had 59, and we finished it off with 66 points. Biggest win that season was a 9-1 home win against Grimsby Town, who actually the following year got relegated. But we had players like Cliff Baston, Eddie Hapgood, David Jack, and is it Jack Hulme? Is it Jack Hulme? David Hulme?
Hulme.
Yeah. Hulme. I can't remember his first name. I wouldn't say it was David or Jack. I'm not sure. I'm not anybody know. I'd love to know. But we had proper players then. And dare I say this, we had a proper manager. The proper Herbert Chapman, who joined a couple of years before, having come from the great Huddersfield Town team that he managed at the time. And as Kenny always says, and he's bang on with it, he once played for Tottenham Hotspurs.
I was keen to that.
Yeah, Kenny, that season, right? Arsenal's first Division 1 title. We absolutely smashed that league, smashed it by a mile. I think second spot had 58 points, if I remember rightly. But maybe if anybody wants to correct me on that, please do. But we had a proper team, man. We had a proper team. We had a proper ground. I know, Highbury. And
another thing we had, and people seem to, it seems to be un-Arsenal-like. We had total domination in terms of we had more. We were the money bag. So when you talk about dominating, not just by players, but the transfer fees as well. In the 1930s, Arsenal had a word over every team.
Mm.
We were a very, very professional outfit. There's no. When you talk about dynasties, and you talk about Liverpool's dynasties in the 70s and 80s, mostly under Bob Paisley, and you talk about Sir Alex's domination of the Premiership from about 1993 up until 2013, and then you talk about Guardiola's domination with Man City. We were like that. Common denominator is that we had access to the best players because we had access to the money. We outspent our rivals in the 1930s, and that's why we were able to get the great players to play for us, the Keith Bastins, the Ted Drakes, Alex Humes, obviously Jacks, and obviously getting Herbert in charge. But let's not forget, Herbert is arguably not only Arsenal's greatest ever manager, he's Huddersfield's greatest ever manager as well because of what he won and trophies put on the table. So it just shows you what a coup Herbert was, but also what a professional, domineering setup we were. Because you think about those teams, 1931 won the league, 30 from 33, 34, 35, and then we won it in when we won it after that, man, a few years after that, so 37, 38. And then
37, 38.
So you think about it, it had not been for the First World War, the Second World War, where could Arsenal have been?
Exactly. I'm going to come on to that point in a little bit, actually. That's a very good point. The thing is, DJ, if you look at Herbert Chapman, won 3 consecutive titles at Huddersfield Town, right? Then comes to Arsenal, sets up an incredible team, right? It's a hard thing to argue that he's probably one. I mean, you couldn't argue against is what I mean. He's probably one of the greatest managers in English football history. Having done that at 2 clubs, yeah. I mean, I know since then there's been, we had Sir Alex Ferguson at Liverpool, had great managers, but he did it at 2 separate clubs.
Yeah,
I know Sir Alex did it in Scotland, but
I think what you got to remember is you can go through the ages and the different timelines, but football is fundamentally played with a ball, 11 on each side, on a grass, and the idea of the game is to get the ball in the opposition's goal, and that hasn't changed.
No.
How you get to that end point has changed, but fundamentally, whether you watch football in the 30s or you watch football now, the object of the game is still the same. So someone like Herbert Chapman, what he done in the 30s, I mean 30, 31, 33, 34, 35, 38, the list goes on. I mean, you don't get a statue in the halls, marble halls at Highbury if you're not a great man, if you're not someone special. And all the managers coming through that door over the years has had to kind of emulate or try to emulate the traditions that he set at the football club. and he got the best out of most players. He got the best out of all the players. You know, attacking wise, we were unstoppable. Defensively, we were ruthless. You know, we had creative players in midfield, and it was basically the foundations upon where this club was built from. But we did have a barren spell. I mean, I think we won it in 48, and I think we won it again in 53, and then in the 60s it was we kind of I don't know what happened in the 60s. We must have been partying too much. I'm not sure. In the 60s. You know, perhaps that part of North London in the swinging 60s were a bit of a, but yeah, I mean, so it's something you cannot forget what this great man's done, because football is football, and it's never really changed over the years, and you know, it's played on the grass, and so I for one don't ever kind of underestimate what he done to this club. And rightly so. That's why we've got the statue outside the Emirates and stuff like that. And yeah, I mean, he had phenomenal players, and players that enjoyed playing for him, obviously, because they were scoring bags of goals. And yeah, I mean, people will say, yeah, but football was different back then. Well, let me tell you something now. If you go back and watch how football was played, even in the 70s and the 60s, if you watch how football was played, half of these players today wouldn't last 15, 20 minutes. They'd be rolling around. Every time they got tackled, they'd be rolling around and somersaulting around the bottom pitch. Yeah. These were hard physical players. These were tackles that used to fly in, and you got to remember the surface, the playing surface these players used to play on.
Shocking.
You know, you wouldn't. Do you know what I mean? You have a little bit of mud now and a little bit of rain, or if it's a little bit icy or a little bit of snow on the ground, it's cooled off. The magic's cooled off. You know, whereas back then, you'd be lucky to see a blade of grass in the winter.
That is so true.
The footwear as well. The thing is that the footwear as well was something else. Is that they were hard boots. They weren't built for your feet. You should comfort your feet. And let's not forget the balls as well. Obviously, technology has come on a long way. But when you think about the situations with players, Dave Watson. Digress a little bit. Dave Watson, Jeff Astor, Norbert Stiles, name but a few. They're now having difficulties. In a way, the modern players who play now, and players who probably played from about the late 80s, 90s onwards, they wouldn't have these issues with their feet. No. They wouldn't have these issues with the balls. But we're going all the way back to the 30s. Where it was there was no sort of like comfort, and they played with a minimum wage as well. There wasn't a situation where you had Jimmy Hill wasn't about in the 30s. So a lot of these players were in a situation where they had a set wage, probably got paid a little bit over the summer to keep them going, but it wouldn't be the sort of set wage. There was no TV money at that time. And if a club didn't want you, you'll get a letter through the post saying services weren't required. So you think about those champions we had, and previous to 1971, it was through thick, and mostly thin financially for these players. But they still put on a show for us. They still, create the history that we always go by. 13 league titles. We wouldn't be a big club without those guys who won these trophies, won these leagues in the 30s. Domination throughout the 30s. That's us a bit.
I'm just going to do these super chats. Thank you very much to SG, my friend. Only time I'm angry is when Jez, DJB, Kenny are discussing the great history of the Arsenal. It's easy my top 5 favourite channel to watch. Thank you, my friend. Thank you for that. Jeanda says, thank you for your super chat, my friend. Still upset about last night panel. This is a Champions League semi-final tie. No game is easy, but we just have to play at a higher level. Every player, if we want to win this, PSG showed that. No bench at all, dear Lord. Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, that is very true, but we're not going to talk about it tonight. I think it's been talked and talked and talked and talked and talked to death. But I get what you're telling me. As Dow says, if you remember the 60s, then you weren't there. Good point. Good point, mate.
I don't think Arsenal were there. I don't think they remember it too well.
No, great point. Though. I like
it wasn't
that.
a very good time for Arsenal football.
There was a world heavyweight title fight.
Yes.
At Highbury in 1966. That was kind of the most memorable thing that ever happened to the club for that 60. I don't think we had any players who participated in as a squad member in the 1966 World Cup. I'm not sure we had one.
That's a great question for Maria. Can you guys tell us, as far as you remember, if Arsenal had a worse captain as the one we have currently? If yes, who? That's a great question.
Well, they say Gallas dropped the ball as a captain after the Birmingham debacle when we had
Gallas. Yeah.
Remember the adversity when we had Eduardo De Silva's broken leg, and then the setback was it? He was a left back that day. He came after Ashley Cole. He went to Man City.
Bloody
left
hell.
back, French left back. Went to Man City.
Oh,
not Senya. No,
left back. Clichy, Gael Clichy.
Yeah, Gael Clichy.
Yeah.
And the worst back, Gael Clichy. He did it about 7 months later, 10 months later, 8 months later in the North London derby. We were 4-2 up. He did the same thing. Trawling the ball, didn't know his bearings of, and he got robbed.
Yeah. No, he wasn't a very good. I was going to say Gallas, to be honest.
He was right though. Gallas was right about our mentality because he was proved right. It's just that he went about it the wrong way. But at the end of the day, not everyone could be Tony Adams. Tony Adams has probably done worse than Gallas when we've lost games and the way he's treated his players. But he's Tony Adams, isn't he?
Yeah. DJ, I mean, it's a great comment from Maria, sorry. Can you think of one? Arsenal captain at all?
I'm thinking all the great captains over the. I mean, the only ones that come to mind are the great ones like the Frank McClintocks and Tony Adams, the Vieiras, and all of that. I'll probably go along. I reckon Gallas probably. But the current one, I'm afraid, the current captain at the moment, not at the moment, facts, the current captain is probably the worst captain at Arsenal that I've seen.
I totally agree with you.
And I'm not jumping on the bandwagon with that. I'm not jumping. If we was 5 years on now and you asked me the same question, Marie, big up, thank you for joining us. Yeah. If you asked me the same question 5 years down the line, I'd say Martin Odegaard.
It's a shame, isn't it, really?
It is a shame. It is a shame because it ain't his fault. It's not Odegaard's fault. It's just that he's been given the captaincy and he hasn't really quite lived up to it. But when you look at captaincies and you look at leaders, the man on the pitch, the captain on the pitch now has completely changed with this modern day football. Yeah, they're just coin tossers, really.
Yeah, that's all they are.
And at the end of the day, you're not allowed. I'm not talking about the lower league football because I do follow quite a bit of lower league football as well. But I'm talking about your modern day footballer now, your modern day captain now at these big clubs. They're not allowed to pull players to one side. They're not allowed to really have a voice in the changing room. You know, they have to toe the line, or their days are numbered. Whereas years ago, Tony Adams, you know, he'd grab players, pull players to one side, and all of that. So the actual leader on the pitch now, then days are gone. them days are gone.
Rice again last night. Rice, when we conceded that goal, he was going calm.
Yeah.
He
didn't see that.
He lifted a trophy 2 years ago for West Ham, and he was very much in that kind of mode. But DJB's right. We do have a situation where the game's changed. The game's changed where it's showing a lot of its sensitive side in a way that it hasn't before. We do have a duty of care obligations now. Let's can't have managers throwing coming in, chucking them, like I said, plates at players. And when the players go for a chicken bug, he's hungry after a football match because you've got to eat after you've done all that game. The incident I'm talking about, or smashed teacups, or you just can't have it these days because of the fact that the game's changed so much. You can't even find a player 2 weeks' wages without the players' union getting involved.
Yeah,
it's very much. They're very much providing an environment for a player to succeed. To extent that it's a less harsh environment, which means people like us, we become the captains like Tony Adams, i.e. we don't care about their duty care situation. We care about the fact we've paid a lot of money to watch these players play, and we are now judges and jury on the field. And that's where they're not under pressure from the manager or the captain, but they're under pressure from us.
True, very true. Anyway, we get back into this. So after that season, we came second to Everton in 31-32 by default. And then, of course, we were on the amazing 3 seasons winning Division 1. 32-33, 33-34, 34-35. In that 33-34 season, you guys maybe know this stat. There's a guy called Frank Moss, very much not heard of. He scored 40 goals that season. 40 goals. And I'm like, I only found that stat out today.
Yeah.
Fair. I didn't know.
Also, Jez, Frank Moss was signed for £3,000.
£3,000.
And he was signed in November 1931 for £3,000. And this guy was banging in 40 goals a season. Just let that sink in a minute with the community, right? £3,000, £3,000, 40 goals a season on pitches you wouldn't even take your dog for a walk on.
No, true.
Don't forget.
That's how you got to look at it. That's how you got to look at it.
But that £3,000 we spent in the 30s, again, bank of it, Arsenal outspending the opposition.
That was a lot of money for a football club back then. This is what I'm saying. We were a very, very. But the problem, in the 30s, we had a lot of sort of royalties, didn't we? It was the Arsenal, We were very classy.
We're a Bank of England club. We're the England Club of England.
Yeah, we had a lot of. We was probably in the 30s. We were the equivalent to Real Madrid, I would have thought.
Yes.
Oh, doubt. Yeah, without doubt.
That's how you got. That's how you got.
The true story. In the 32-33 season, Arsenal went on a tour of France, right, over there. And if you remember, Arsenal hosted the French international team at Highbury.
Yes.
To play in a game. But in a game at Saint Etienne in France, Arsenal won the game. It's a friendly game, obviously, 15-1. And if you ever go to Saint Etienne in France, to this day, in the centre square, there is a statue of the player that scored the 1 goal for Saint Etienne. That's how big it was for them to play Arsenal and to score a goal. And it's still there to this day. It's got bullet holes in it, by the way, from the war, but it's still there to this day. And that just shows how big Arsenal as a club are then and now. We are still a big club, whatever you want to say.
Do you remember the international players we had during that era?
Yes.
Because one of the most infamous games was the Battle of Highbury. And it didn't actually involve Arsenal. It was Arsenal versus Italy, the Battle of Highbury in the 30s.
Mm.
And one of the players who was target of the Italians' anger was our own Ted Drake. There was a lot of off the ball stuff where he ended up with black eyes because I do stuff to him off the ball. But that's another indication of how big a club we are. If you notice that whenever a team dominates the leagues, they form a core of the England side. We did that in the 30s as well.
Yeah, I mean, that just goes to show you where we were. I mean, it was an incredible thing. I mean, so we went 3 seasons winning Division 1. And it wasn't like, we were pretty much walking it.
And a system where we'd play 3 at the back. It'd play 3-2-2-3.
Yeah.
What manager would play that nowadays? So he'd play 3 at the back, two just in front. So there'd be really no fullbacks. You'd have 3. You'd have then 2 defensive. Then you'd have 2 just in front of the back 3. Then another 2, and then you'd play 3 across the top, 3 at the front. That's why we scored so many goals. We used to play with 3 strikers.
We're ahead of our time. We're ahead of our time tactically, yeah. But again, as I said, we had the bet. We had the most expensive players money could buy. I don't know if their salaries reflected their transfer fees, but we also had the best facilities as well. I mean, as much as a lot of the pictures were on eyesore, Highbury wasn't. No. Highbury, the pictures we played at home were good for it, and we played attractive football as well during those times as well. Something that we've been accused of not doing before Arsene Wenger got to the club. We weren't known for playing football with panache, but again, you've got the manager, got the players, you've got the successor, and that's where you are. And then you look at the goals. I mean, everyone talks about Cliff Bastin. I talk about Ted Drake. Yeah. There's another guy who Jez mentioned as part of his quiz question who had probably a better goal ratio than both of them. But I think he scored about 127 goals. Jez, take it away.
I mean, the thing is with Ted Drake,
yeah,
right, he was an absolute legendary player. I remember the stories my granddad used to tell me about these Ted Drake, Baston, all those players. I mean, they were just something else. And as Kenny just said, you just hit on something that just sparked in my brain. And I was looking early in my book there. The crowds we used to get at Highbury, 45, 48,000 average in the 30s, in the great days, average crowd on a Saturday afternoon. I mean, God knows what it must have been like going in. You must be like a bloody sardine in a tin.
Yeah, brilliant.
The North Bank was a big back in the day, but then when you remember in the 90s when they made it bigger, right? And you guys remember it was all terrace.
Yeah.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
I mean, I can remember games you're like,
you
couldn't get your arms up because you're like.
You could. You was like this all the time. You couldn't even eat a bag of paper. You couldn't even eat your paper.
For me, it was during special occasions. Obviously, you talk about the game at Sassuolo in '81, and obviously there was a match there. Then I suppose there was games against Liverpool. There was one and Man United. Obviously, when Brian McClare missed a penalty and Lee Dixon, Nigel Britton went up to him, we got 54,000 in that time. And then 3 days later, when we beat Everton in the second leg of the Letters Cup, we got 51,000 in. But after that season, we were getting there. We were packing the ground because that was the season we won the league in '89. We did have 51,000 all, and then sadly Hillsborough came. It brought us all to our senses, Hillsborough.
Yeah,
and quite rightly, it was dangerous. It was dangerous, but as William says here, do you guys remember Tony Woodcock?
How can you not forget him?
How can you forget him?
Exactly.
Legend. Really, I love Woodcock. He was another player that used to get me used to make me sort of go, oh, hang on a minute, he's got the ball, and make something happen. He always used to make something happen, and he was exciting. I found Tony Woodcock exciting, like Paul Merson, like Bergkamp, like some of the great players over the years.
Yeah, he's still around. I think he lives in Germany. He moved after he left, went back to Cologne.
Still got all his hair.
Yeah, he's met my brother. My brother went to Germany years back. The thing with Tony Woodcock, I think he probably had the hardest shot in football since Peter Lorimer. Everyone talks about hot shot Lorimer.
Yeah.
I think there's only two players that I've seen hits a football harder than Peter Lorimer, as hard as Peter Lorimer. Jimmy Floyd Hasselbank and Tony Woodcock.
Yeah.
With that left foot, let's just say, Tony Woodcock, if you got away with his shot, he'll hospitalise you. You go to hospital.
He had a vicious shot.
That left foot, oh God.
Yeah, good player.
Anyway, of course, then we missed out and we went 37-38, won it again. 121, drew 10, lost 11, 77-4 goals, 44 against. So our defence was pretty shabby. 52 points we won that on, which, okay, fair enough. Then, of course, World War II interrupted us, Kenny.
Yes.
We could have gone on, I think, if that hadn't come about. We could have gone on and seen even more.
We would have gone on. We would have gone on the basis of the fact that we were ahead of our time in terms of like finances, facilities at Highbury, facilities in our training, and we could outspend our rivals, which we were doing in the 30s, in a way that it became a level playing field in general for everyone after the Second World War, where we were just getting back into it, isn't it? We didn't really recover. It took us 3 years to actually get going in the UK after the Second World War. You think about it.
We had to go and play at Tottenham, didn't we? Because Highbury Tottenham's.
Yeah. So and then you think about the first World Cup after the Second World War was in 1950. So there wasn't one in 1942. There was one in 1946. If you think about the FA Cup, obviously you had the FA Cup in 1946, but I think football really recovered and got back to some sort of normality in 1947, 48 when we won it.
True. And we had Joe Mercer as captain.
Yes.
I think in 48.
Yeah. Who left? Who joined us from Everton? Still lived in Liverpool.
Yeah,
and
we had players like Tom Whittaker. And Logie, and I think we signed a player from Brentford as well. I forgot the name now. We also had the great Dennis Compton.
Yes.
And the great Dennis Compton, obviously, they were also me and Kenny like the old cricketers.
Yeah, so Dennis and we played for the club.
Yeah, and our first game back at Highbury because of the air raid, I think it was Sunderland, and we were beaten 3-1. Was our first game back at Highbury, and that was a very, very good side. But that was a very physical side during that 40 season. They weren't free flowing, but they were we had players like Compton in the side, Whittaker, Logie, and people like that. They were a very, very physical team. So, but again, a force, and Highbury was a cauldron. It was a hard place to come and get a result. Even back then, it was such a hard place to get a result. But one of the things that always stands out with Highbury, even back then, and Kenny mentioned it earlier on, was the playing surface.
Yes.
We've always been renowned for a brilliant playing surface at Highbury. And, that was one thing that stayed. Even even in the 70s when we used to get the snow and all the games around us was being postponed, Highbury was always played because we were one of the first grounds to get the undersoil eating.
Yes, right. Yeah,
that's right.
So it was never postponed. But yeah, that 48 team was a very powerful team. And the great Dennis Compton that we haven't mentioned too much in our history channels actually.
No, we haven't actually. That's a fair comment.
You know what? We tend to bypass because of the 30s was a year of domination, and I suppose it hurts us.
Up the Alfred crew.
Yeah, you know, if it hurts us to talk about 42, 48, and 53 because after 53, we didn't win anything for 70 years.
We had that Barren spell. We went from 53 to 71, which is similar to where we're going now.
Yeah, it was only 17 years. Not
17 years.
Yeah, I was going to say it was 70. Yeah.
We didn't win it for another. Let's not forget, from 71, we didn't win it for 18 years up until 89. So it's not as if history. This is the first time it happened. Only that we've gone this as long as we've gone without, and a lot of reason why we haven't won it for 21 years because of the situation is that we refused to meet the challenge ahead of us. We thought we could cope with Man United being a direct competition, but when Chelsea and Man City came with their monies, it became that we couldn't compete. We didn't want to compete.
No.
And I think maybe in the 50s as well, 53, 73, again, I do think that teams were catching up on us. Newcastle caught up with us. They were a top side.
Yeah, well, they beat us in the FA Cup, didn't they?
Let's not forget the Busby Babes of the 50s, where they were playing beautiful football, reminiscent of how we were playing under Sir Herbert. Unfortunately, sadly, tragically, that team died. The last ever game was a 5-4 win in 1958 at Highbury, and then they went off to Munich for their I think it was their quarter-final semi and the European Cup.
European
Cup, but 1958, and there was one guy, a ginger guy, who went on to manage Tottenham, play for West Ham, but is very known for his association with Bournemouth. Him and his dad, who are both Arsenal fans, were at that game. That guy is called Henry Redknapp, better known as Harry Redknapp.
Yeah.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah. Harry Redknapp, born in Poplar. Him and his dad, despite the fact that they were brought up in East End, are Arsenal fans.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
There's a couple of comments I think worth reading out here. P Money says, do you see a lot of leadership quality in Skelly? I think he would inspire a team in the near future. Adam, I think of. What do you reckon, guys?
Possibly. Me personally, seeing his antics, the way he celebrated the Haaland, and I think with Skelly, you have to be you have to be a very mature person to be a brilliant captain. And I think as much as he's a great player, and I like the confidence he's got, I don't think he'll be mature enough to make a captain.
I think we already got our next captain. I think to be a captain of a modern football team, both internationally and domestically, you have to be the face of the club in terms of like your conduct has to be exemplary off the field. Not that Skelly's isn't.
Yeah,
but we've already reserved that position for Bukayo Saka. Bukayo Saka is the face of the club.
Yeah,
and let's not forget he's not much older than Miles Lewis-Skelly. So if Miles Lewis-Skelly has any ambitions to be our captain, he's got to wait a long time, because if Odegaard thinks the captaincy is too much for him, then the next cab of the rank is Bukayo Saka.
Yeah.
In essence, Bukayo Saka might as well be our captain. He is the face of our football club.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not sure about that one myself.
But Another player that sticks out. I mean, we did have some good players early 60s, even though it was a barren spell for Arsenal.
Joe Baker, George Eastham.
Hurd. We had David Hurd, who was an exceptional player. So we did have players. It's just for some reason or another, there was a lot of teams that had probably seen the tide of change during the 50s, and a lot of these teams were starting to get their act together, and a lot more money was coming into the game then in the 60s because it was fashionable to go to football matches along with the times, and there was a lot of money coming into football, and unfortunately it wasn't really a good time for Arsenal Football Club.
Well, Arsenal, when you talk about what Jimmy Hill did in 1961, where he took on the Football League, he took on the club chairman and got rid of the minimum wage. Arsenal, despite the fact that in the 30s, Arsenal, one of those clubs that spent a lot of money in transfer fees, they were one of the clubs who were very stingy with it when it came to paying their players.
Yeah.
Now, Arsenal were very much enough, and you're going to say, well, what's changed? Well, that's one of the reasons why we weren't competing, especially in the 60s, because clubs were moving at times. You had George Best, the fifth. It was meant to be the fifth Beutel, who was off the field stuff. In the 60s, you had even before the World Cup, Bobby Moore was very much in demand with the advertisers. Those sort of players. Arsenal wasn't that kind of club.
No.
Where even though, if you think about it, you're thinking, well, why the hell not? They're based in London. It was a swinging 60s where everyone wanted to be around Carnaby Street and the West. We had to get on a tube, a Victoria line, and the Piccadilly line to go for Arsenal. Why wasn't Arsenal the club of the London club of the 60s when Chelsea, Spurs, and West Ham were the more attractive options? And the reason why is because the reason why we didn't compete for the 60s is we didn't maximise the new opportunities that were brought by axing the minimum wage.
I mean, we had players like Jimmy Bloomfield as well.
Another top player.
We had some really top players.
Top manager as well. Top manager. He began as a good manager.
Yeah. We had some really good players, and that was young Terry Neal as well, wasn't he, in the 60s as well? Played for us.
We had the big name. We even tried going for a big name in Billy Wright from 62 to 66. We got Bobby Moore before Bobby Moore.
Yeah,
Right. Was, you think about it, he was a very kind of mega star.
Yeah.
Who married a Beverly sister, who had a famous singing group. Who sang a song called Sisters. Oh God, that's
well, I'm not going to admit I remember that, but there you go.
Yeah, but you know what I mean. In the 60s, I'm shocked that we didn't compete because of the fact that we're a London club, and we if Billy Wright couldn't attract great players, who couldn't? But he was a poor manager, very terrible manager.
True. I'll just do this super chat, guys, from Benno71. Thank you, my friend. Forget the result for a moment. Shouldn't we be jealous of the way PSG plays compared to us? Just hoping for free kicks and corners. That's a great comment, man. It's a great comment. That is.
They're a team.
Yeah, well, Kenny touched on it. They are a team. They are a unit. They've got. I was very impressed with them last night watching them live, and I was very impressed with what I've seen in recent weeks. He's got them playing. They're comfortable in the press. They get the ball and they keep the ball, and they do it with pace. And that's any team that does that can do it with pace, and that have got good players in midfield that's comfortable to have the ball in any situation with players around them. Then you've got the makings of a good team.
True. Colton's Connor, in the 60s, football was on its arse. What are you talking about, Jeff? I don't know. I presume that's if England didn't win the World Cup, football would not have been big in England.
He's got a bit of a point. He's got a bit of a point.
Yeah, got a bit of a point there, actually.
He's actually got a very good point. And obviously he was there.
It's a massive. It's been massive.
It was massive. It was massive. But yeah,
We're fashionable.
You think about it in the 60s, you know, in the 60s, you had the 1962 World Cup, which England got to quarterfinals, lost to Brazil 3-1. And if you look at the England teams, it was actually a selection panel that picked the players. It wasn't a manager. Walter Winterbottom was England manager from 1946 to 62, where he was basically the name on the opposition team sheet. So football was in its arse, and it took for obviously Alf Ramsey to become to take it on. You know, select his own players. But there were certain improvements in football. Let's not forget the Spurs team in 1961, 60, 61 played beautiful football, the push and run stuff. They were the first team to win a European trophy in 63, and then West Ham won the next. West Ham 2 years after that won a European trophy. So it was getting that way. But I see what you mean. It did take for the 1966 World Cup. And I think if you get into the 70s when England weren't successful, but you saw a lot of flair players.
Yeah, but I was going to say, but during the 60s, you had some lovely players. I mean, there were some great players around in the 60s. I mean, real top players around in the 60s. But it was... yeah, I mean, it was a funny old time, wasn't it? Because I do understand where he's coming from, but you had lots of other things then during the 60s, didn't you? You had, the music scene was very, very big, and big bands coming in, and football weren't on everyone's agenda in the 60s, was it? It was kind of it wasn't as big as what it is.
Let's not forget the first match of the day. Let's not forget the first genuine highlight show was in August 1964. The first game that was televised was Arsenal versus Liverpool at Anfield against the reigning league champions. Yeah. Don Howe played in that game. We lost 3-2. Don Howe played that game.
Yeah, I know.
He says that he said he was rubbish that day, but that's when football was getting a bit of an interest. And then obviously 4 years later, you had the regional channels. If you're from London, like all three of us are from, we had the big match in 1968 to kick off the 68-69 season. So it was when football became televised. When we got our once a week
it started to get out there, didn't it?
That's when football became popular again, because we were seeing these players on TV. Albeit in black and white, but we were seeing these players on TV. Obviously, I wasn't born then, but if I was going to go into the zeitgeist of the football did what started in the 60s, and then in the 70s, that's when it became superstars. Rodney Marsh, Stan Bowles, players like Frank Worthington, the flair players, Alan Hudson, the Chelsea.
Go and watch YouTube clips of Frank Worthington. That's all I'm saying.
Obviously, we segue into 1970-71 because when you think about that league title, that's when it was rare for us to win a title. But you can criticise the 60s all you like, but without Arsenal winning I think the segue into Arsenal winning the double in 71. When it actually started for me, when I went through my Arsenal history, we won the 1966 Youth Cup final.
We did.
Oh, I didn't know
for those players who played in 96, that I think that
kept a lot of our youth together going into the 70s.
And that was a kind of foundations for 17.
It was the foundations to the 70s, and it's a bit like how we are now with the Skelly and the Wenyeris coming through and the Sackers and all of that. And this is why it's key that you keep your academy, because that academy in the 60s, late 60s, catapulted us to our double winning team, really.
The near misses in 68 and 69, where we got to finals and we tasted defeat, realised defeat tasted really bitter. That laid the foundations for the first cup and the double the year afterwards. So you talk about the 60s being a terrible time for football, but match of the day, being, like I said, having its first airing, and then a big match and the regional things that did put football on the map.
It did, yeah, you're true. That is very true. I mean, I'm just going to ask a question in a second for you guys. Christopher says, what was your first league title? I was 71, my friend. That's when I was at Highbury when we won celebration, bus parade, and I was at the cup final. I got my fight. Well, I'll put it away now. I had them out the other day, or the cup final ones, talking about it. But yeah, that's my first one as a very young man. I was 11 years of age. Just off topic, can you guys remember when you first saw at your home as a young kid? Kenny, it had been for you later, because you weren't even born then. But my first time of seeing football, or I can even remember the first TV program I watched on a colour TV at home, was 1974, and it was Doctor Who and the Daleks.
Yeah,
I remember it.
Yeah.
It was the man came in, right?
Yeah.
It's when you used to rent a TV. You didn't buy them, you rented them.
That's right.
And it was a TV company called Multi Broadcast, I think they were called. And I remember this bloke coming in, and my dad helping him. His massive bloody thing, like that bloody deep at the back, and the bloke was. He coming. We had a new aerial put up to receive colour, and I remember the guy. You had to tune all the channels and all that. Yeah, they had what BBC One, BBC Two, ITV. That's all you had.
I'm not sure you laugh, right? The first time I remember anything, and I have clear memories, is from probably when I was 5 years old in 1977. So the first football match I remember watching was a 1977 FA Cup final with Man United Liverpool. And then a week afterwards, I remember watching England play Scotland. And I remember Scottish fans destroying the goal.
Yes, swinging on the goalpost.
That's what I remember. And obviously, if you talk about programmes, obviously, Starsky and Hutch.
Oh, crikey. Yeah. With them big, what they called? They were like a big wraparound jumper thing, weren't they? Do you remember them?
Yeah.
I had one. I had one of them.
Yeah.
I had one of them. It was,
I just remember all the kiddies programs in colour. That was my first memory. Watching the, all the kids' TV, really. You play school and bits and pieces like that in colour. And then obviously, you grow up and then you watch your first football match. And it was quite a while till we got a colour TV, actually, because I come from a very, unfortunately, we had to wait quite a while. I didn't come from mum and dad was quite poor. So we didn't get a colour TV till quite late. Probably later than a lot of my school friends and people that lived around.
It was common in the 70s, even though we had colour, for people to still have black and white TV. I went from colour to black and white to back to colour. And you think about it, I remember when you used to think that teams that played in green played in sky blue. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's true. Christopher says, bit off topic, but still find it hilarious the way Egal said on that stream that he remembered Anfield '89.
I think he's been told about it. We spoke about it.
Yeah.
And it's like me. I wasn't around in 1971 or the 60s, but I do memorise, and I've seen videos and I've read books up on their history, and I think every Arsenal fan who wants to do new media, you have to read up on the club.
You got to know your history. It's what it is. Yeah, I mean,
you've got to make an impression that you were there, even if you weren't there.
Yeah,
that's
74, 75 are my fondest memories. I mean, I was 71. I was like 4 or 5 years old. So around about 73, 74 was my kind of that very lull period.
Yeah, well, at least relegation, just about.
DJB, when I was growing up, man, and I was a kid, England never got into never got to the World Cup.
England was.
They got to the European Championship in 1980.
Yeah, But I remember the highlight of my football season was when we used to have the home international matches.
Ooh,
England v
I loved
Wales,
it.
England v
I loved it.
Ireland, England v Scotland. We had
Oh,
the home
British
international,
chaps, home
a bit like
international.
the Six Nations in rugby, but you had England, Wales, Northern Ireland, Scotland. Was Republic of Ireland in it?
No, Ireland weren't needed, weren't asked.
It was only four. And you play one another, and it was like a little mini league basis.
Brilliant.
And England never got their own way a lot of the time. Scotland pushed them all the way. Wales pushed them all. You know, I mean, the great John Toshak and people like that.
Have you noticed those three associations never recovered from England's decision to pull out of?
No, and this is what I'm saying. That to me, when they stopped doing that, the nation's football, I was gutted because I was really into watching England when that was around.
Oh yeah, definitely. But you know the reason why? Because you like the fact that you love watching England Scotland because sometimes teammates will play against each other.
Yeah.
True. Anyway, let's move it on. Christopher says, "Cheers, you should get Julian on one of these streams because he apparently followed Arsenal during the Terry Neal days." Right. Yeah, I'm sure. Like he left that A level to get up to Anfield in '89. Yeah, right.
No way you missed an exam for that.
Well, he didn't even get it right because the A levels, Kenny and DJ, you know, back in the day, didn't start until June, and that game was in May. So I knew he was lying as soon as he said that. I can't remember. It was on some lady's stream. Oh, I'll tell you what it was. It was that young girl, the young lady, something.
Sophie?
No, Amanda.
The little girl, Sophie.
Oh, Sophie.
Yeah. He was on there and he was waxing lyrical. I thought, you bloody liar. And I thought I didn't put anything. I was going to comment. I thought no, she's too nice.
Sometimes it's not worth it, mate. You just let them.
Yeah, I thought that was a young
girl. You know, we segue into 1971. You think about it. There was a lot of you think about who won the league title before then. Everton won it in 1970.
Yeah,
and the year before that was Leeds. And when you think about 1970, we finished a point in front of Leeds, and then the team that finished third was Tottenham.
Yeah, that's true.
You think about the key games. Remember, there was a game in 71. We beat Man United. We actually smashed them. We beat the league champions. Smashed them. There was if you think about a key game, there was actually a game where we thought we lost the title, where we lost to Leeds United. That's it, at Ellen Road. A very dirty game. Leeds were disgusting. But if you think about it, two key moments for Arsenal to win the league. Do you remember the game? There was a game that didn't actually involve Arsenal, but it involved Leeds and West Bromwich Albion. Do you remember the goal where Leeds players stopped and the referee said, play on?
Play on, yeah, and they all stopped. Yeah. And that was very sonant. Yeah, that was very.
Remember that game?
Yeah.
That had the title, didn't it?
I remember that West Bromwich Albion team. They had some ballers as well.
Tony Brown.
Yeah. They had some real good players. Yeah, West Brom was a good side then. And a lot of these teams in the 70s.
Didn't he get dementia?
Yeah, he did. Yeah, because head in the ball.
Very sad.
When you think about that game in 71 season, Leeds, didn't have no margin for error.
No.
Against West Brom, they all stopped.
They did. Literally stopped.
The referee went.
It was as if. Scored 71. Do you know the ironic thing about the 71 winning championship team? We actually scored 71 goals in the year of 71.
Who was our top goal scorer that year? The late Ray Kennedy.
Ray Kennedy, of course he was, yeah. And he was our top goal scorer the following year as well, wasn't he, in 72?
From the midfield, though. From the midfield.
71 goals scored and 29 against, and 29 goals against.
Yeah,
Big
it
Raddy
is.
got
Right.
15.
65 points we got to win it.
Yeah, 65 points. Big Raddy got
29,
15
drew
goals.
7, lost 6, 71 4, 29 against.
Yeah.
65 points that was.
Yeah.
That year.
71 goals in a 71 winning season. You couldn't write it, could you?
Yeah.
No.
Charlie George scores in double figures that year as well.
Yeah.
That was a great
phenomenal team.
On this team, really, because that's when I was. I watched Arsenal in 68, 69, but it's a little bit smoky. You know, I was only a kid, really. I don't remember it. But that particular season, my first ever FA Cup final.
That was it. And
that's the one that sticks in my foremost.
Yeah,
my
amazing.
head.
Amazing. And then we went, and then it was a lull period, wasn't it? Massive lull period.
Yeah, but you know that coincided with two things, though.
There's a question I just want to ask here, though. SG, good question here. Was it a reason why Arsenal never won more after the 30s? Was it because we had different owners?
The war. There was simple Second World War.
It was the war, wasn't it?
Was the war. Broke up a lot of the players, broke up a lot of the team. Money went out of the game. Money got sucked into, obviously, different things.
War effort. You know, a lot of these footballers became servicemen.
Yeah.
Conscription.
Arsenal lost players as well.
We lost some.
Is it at the Emirates? I've never seen it myself. Is that plaque that was at Highbury? Is that at the Emirates now? It's got to be somewhere, surely.
It might be in sort of like the private room, but it's on display. I'm not too sure if it's on display. I'll have to look again because, you know, I really need to sort of like go to matches and without the noise, just go and look around the surroundings. You know, have a look around, press box, which I do, but just have a good look around and think, yeah, that's certain things we need to do. But yeah, the war effort killed us. But you think about the 70s, everyone talks about, why didn't we do more in 71, 71? Well, we sold players. George Graham went to Man United, a struggling Man United. We didn't build a team around Alan Ball, who we signed in after we won the double.
Big mistake that was.
And then Franklin Clintock was deemed surplus for requirements, went to QPR, reinvented himself.
Yeah, that's true.
You know, we marginalised Peter Storey. We definitely marginalised and pissed off. My language, Charlie George. So team time to break up. But let's not underestimate that. 72, obviously, Derby won it, and then they won it in 75, and then obviously you had the Leeds team of 1974, the team that went first 29 games they were unbeaten, and then afterwards it was a write-off because it was Liverpool.
Yeah, it was Liverpool, and then Liverpool domination took over.
Yeah, and then obviously you had back, but
Lee will be here. Leeds United promoted. Big up to Lee.
Yeah, big up Lee. Congratulations.
Congratulations, Lee. But it's on getting promoted. But it's one of those things where, I've only missed Christopher. I only missed one game, and that was because it was a family party where I didn't expect. Basically, it was a situation where we played Lincoln in the FA Cup quarter final in 2017.
Oh yes.
And I agreed to be the doorman of a family member's birthday party. She was only 12 at the time, but I thought, oh yeah, you do it all. Yeah, of course I will. Of course I do. Oh, you could do it one day. Yeah, no problem. And then all of a sudden, it was Lincoln Town.
Yeah.
And then I thought, all right, 12:30 kickoff. Yeah, I could try it. They put the bloody game at 5:30 on BT Sport.
Yeah.
On a train against Lincoln City. I can't be at two places at once. Oh God, and then you ever said thank you as well.
Did you get a cup of Coke?
We're going to move it on to the course. 88, 89, the one season where there was 50,000 Arsenal at Anfield Road. Just about every you talk to, it was there. Amazing, incredible. I don't know how they got 50,000 into the Anfield Road end myself, but
hey, how many people were at the 1966 World Cup final where there was 20,000 German fans, and there was another probably 70 or 80,000 England fans? Yet, how many people do you know that was 1966 World Cup final? Englishmen. Let's not forget. I'll repeat. There's 20,000 German fans there that day. Same at Anfield, isn't it, Jez?
Yeah, it did. I find it laughable, but that year, of course, George Graham, 122, drew 10, lost 6, 73 goals, 4, 36 against, 76 points.
Liverpool got 65 goals, and we had equal. Liverpool's goals against was actually superior to ours, but we scored more goals. We actually won the league because we scored more goals, believe it or not.
And do you know what? Sorry, Ken. There was, again, we were doing our hardest to bottle that title that year because we our games got leading into that Anfield. Our own game at Highbury.
Derby, Dean Saunders. Then we drew Wimbledon 2-2, goals from
and I'm thinking, please don't do this to me. Please don't do this to me.
But the odds was against us. The whole country wanted Liverpool to win that game because of Hillsborough.
Because of Hillsborough. That's right.
That is so true.
So that's not a dig at Liverpool fans.
No. I mean, when we went to Anfield, we had the whole, for sentimental reasons, and rightly so. They were backing Liverpool because they wanted it for the city and the fans because of the Hillsborough. Also, Liverpool were a fantastic team at the time.
Well, the season before, in terms of, it probably wasn't their best Liverpool team because a lot of people say the 1979 Liverpool team was their best team, but in terms of football they played with panache,
they were a really good side.
Yeah, let's not forget we were a great side as well. Let's not forget when you think about it, we actually started that season where we meant business. Wimbledon beating Wimbledon away, the North London derby I attended that time. That game we won 3-2, and all the goals were scored in the first half. You know, you think about the players we had. Brian Marwood, we got from Sheffield Wednesday, who gave us a cut in it, gave us width. David Rocastle was at his best. Let's not forget we had the season at the end of the 87-88 season, we signed Lee Dixon and Steve Bold from Stoke, who made up the defence. We already had Nigel Winterburn from Wimbledon.
But they all came in and hit the ground running, though, Kenny, didn't they? When they signed for us, and right from day one, Lee Dixon, Bold, Winterburn,
exactly.
You know, right from day one, they hit the ground running. They looked as if they was part of that team.
Oh, well, absolutely. And
the thing is, George Graham instilled that into him. This is how the approach was. This is why George Graham, for me, is the best football manager this club's ever had. Because
another thing as well.
The players really wanted to play for him, and it was incredible.
They were scared of him. They were scared of him. Paul Mercer
but it was incredible. It was absolutely incredible. And I just remember that title, and I remember going to Anfield, and in the back of my mind, all I kept saying to myself is, if we can go in at 1-0 up, I think we've got a chance. If we can go in at 1-0 up, I think we've got a chance.
Well, you know what it was is that it's kind of similar to our situation next week, where it's a game of football, where we still got to do the basics right. We still can't go gun ho. We just got to be able to play a game of football, but make sure that any chances we get, we take. But you think about that season, up until February, we're walking that league because Liverpool lost at home to Norwich City, lost at home to Newcastle that season. They struggled in it.
It wouldn't have been just. We actually, although we try to throw it away, we actually deserved to win the league that year.
Oh yeah, we would have rightful winners that year because of the fact that it was our league to lose. All up to it was only from about January 1989 after Liverpool lost to Man United on New Year's Day that day. They won that little run. Had it not been for that run, we would have probably won that league anyway, easily.
And,
Despite the drop points.
When you watch back the Mickey Thomas goal, you watch it back now, even now, and you know the history, don't you? You know he scores, obviously. But even when you watch it now, you think, is he going to miss? I still go like that watching it. Do you know what I mean? I still go like, oh.
Kevin Richardson, right? Kevin Richardson gets the ball.
Yeah.
Flicks it forward, and then the rest is history.
But why didn't Johnny Barnes kick it into Rosehead? If Johnny Barnes had just kicked it into Rosehead, mate, the history would have been rewritten.
Dave, Johnny Barnes wasn't that kind of player. Johnny Barnes was a player. And that Liverpool team weren't that team. That Liverpool team. And
I'll never forget the move.
Yeah, that Anfield crowd demanded them they played football with panache.
Yeah, I'll never forget that move leading into that second goal. And that whistle couldn't have come quick enough to me.
You notice one thing, though. We were ready. We were ready. Jared, I've never been in prison. I think you got the wrong Arsenal fan. Thank you very much. but we were ready for Liverpool that season. You think about it, we had some very competitive games against Liverpool. Don't forget we had a very competitive game against them in the sorry, wrong person, mate. You're trash, and don't spoil our great talk with your trash. Anyway, back to what I was saying.
That's great.
We played. Somebody get rid of that Jared Club idiot.
Yeah, we played Liverpool. We played Liverpool in the Littlewoods Cup, albeit they beat us eventually in a replay at Villa Park. Stephen McMahon scored a cracker.
Yeah,
Peter Pizzi, But
he was a good
we
player.
had a few battles with Liverpool. And then we had that. What's that? That Mercantile game with Liverpool. Again, another game where we drew 1-1 with them. And then we had a game against the league that were really close. So we had that kind of belief that we could compete and beat Liverpool that season, where we didn't have we didn't have that belief the year before where they beat us home and away, even though we beat them in the Littlewoods Cup. We didn't have that belief before. So, in retrospect, you think about it, we shouldn't really have been surprised that we went Anfield and won that game that year. And Liverpool did have a healthy respect for us. They knew that there was the one team that could beat them at Anfield and beat them, come away with a 2-0 win was us because of the games we had against them.
And that's why I've got a lot of respect for the city, and that's why I've got a lot of respect for their fans, because when we came out of the stadium, and you've got to remember the way Liverpool were beaten, they were actually shaking their hands and patting us on the back, and they appreciated what we'd actually achieved, even though you could see it that they were absolutely devastated.
That's been a shock.
That's why I've been back there a few times, and it
must have been a shock. Though. Can you imagine it? Yeah. Even though they had this sort of season, the whole country was behind them because of the Hillsborough disaster.
Yeah.
Fuck me. I think I've just blocked Yeti as well. Sorry,
no, don't block the Yeti.
Yeah,
no, not the Yeti. He's a legend.
How do I unblock him, people?
Oh, I don't know, man. Don't ask me. I ain't got a clue.
Oh, fucking hell, man.
Yeti, I apologise on Jezzy's behalf. I will.
Yeti, I'm sorry. I should have ignored that loser instead of reacting to him. It's cost you.
No, Kenny, that was out of order. I don't know why he's coming on. I don't know why idiots are coming.
I know
on.
that is.
It ain't that sort of channel, man. It ain't that sort of man. He's a clean community.
He's just a prick.
You think about
mental health issues, I'm sure.
You think about that season. That season, we didn't break Liverpool's domination, but we actually took the bricks out of the foundation for Man United to clean up. They actually broke Liverpool's domination themselves, but we're the ones who took away Liverpool's air of invincibility because everyone was scared of Liverpool.
Oh,
even when Everton won the league in 87, 85, it was no one to go Anfield. But the season afterwards, they won the league.
Yeah.
Not playing great football. And we finished fourth. And guess who finished third? Tottenham. Guess who finished second? Graham Taylor's Aston Villa. And Graham Taylor, in finishing second in 89-90 season, he went and got an England job. Big mistake.
Killed him. Yeah.
If there's another mod in here, can you please unblock the Yeti because I can't do it on StreamYard as host. I can't.
Yeti, man, we're so sorry.
It's my fault because it as I was blocking that prick, it jumped. The bloody chat jumped, and I've blocked the wrong man.
And then we sort of like, I mean, do you know what though? This is really weird. Like, so when we won, we scored in 71. We scored 71 goals. 89, 73, 91, 74, 98, 66, 02, 79, and 04, 73.
Yeah.
So we pretty much scored the same amount of goals in all those seasons, and yet
standards higher now. You think about it right now.
The invincibles we had and all them great attacking players, they didn't score as they didn't really run away with their goal scoring as much as we did in 71.
Well, yeah, but what about the points tally? The points tally in 1998 was only 70. It was only 78.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it's crazy.
Right.
Crazy.
And
this is what makes this season. It was only 78 points then, and Liverpool have won it with 82 points today, like this season, which is madness. And people say football's moved on.
In 1989, we won both of Arsenal and Liverpool 76 points.
Yeah.
Let's move it on to the probably. I know it's going to be controversial. This one, 1991, probably the greatest team, the greatest season. Lost one game, 1991, won 24, drew 13, lost 1, 74 for us, only 18 goals conceded.
Hey, Jess, common denominator, make sure your first game of the season is Wimbledon away.
Yep, 5-1.
Yeah. Was that the season we beat Coventry as well? Last game of the season at Highbury, 6-1.
Yeah, 6-1.
Yeah.
You know, there was
our hat trick.
Yeah, you know, in 1990 to 91, we actually were held 0-0 by Spurs. You know, just Gary Lineker and Gary Lineker.
Yeah, it weren't a pretty game, was it? It weren't a very good
ticket game. It was actually an all-ticket game where you had to purchase your tickets 2 weeks before the derby. So so it was an early game. It was in August. Spurs put men behind the ball, i.e. a la Terry Venables. And we were singing Paul Gascoigne, "Don't cry, Gascoigne, don't cry." Obviously, Italian 90.
After Italian 90, yeah.
There was another game which really stood out where I thought, you know what, this side is a beast of a team. 2 games, both at Highbury. Chelsea were beaten 4-1. They went 1-0 up with a goal from Kevin Wilson. We actually mashed them at home. And then obviously the Liverpool game to 3-0. Where Alan Smith was just
Alan Smith was unplayable. Yeah, he was incredible. As he was the whole season, he was incredible. Yeah. I agree with Jez. I think that was one of probably the best teams.
Well, the only team that's better than that team is, for me, is Arsene Wenger's 2002 team. When I see a certain person who grew up in the same era as me talk about Invincibles, I just want to nominate him for the Ice Bucket Challenge. I really do. The reason why I want to nominate him for the Ice Bucket Challenge because it's not actually our best ever team. Our best ever team is Arsene Wenger's 2002 team, which we're going to come to, and obviously the 91 team of George Graham. So I don't boast about the Invincibles. I don't care about the Invincibles because I've seen 2 teams that are better than the Invincibles in my lifetime.
I have. Even though the Invincible team deserves, the accolades. I've seen better teams than the Invincibles. Arsenal.
The reason I say the 1991, is purely and simply, is without question, was basically the team that Wenger the defence went on to inherit, conceding only 18 goals.
Yeah.
18 goals.
Yeah, it was phenomenal.
You have to say that is something proper special.
When you think the 02,
you look at the amount of games that team played.
yeah, exactly. But and when you look at the 02 team and the 04 team, the 02 team conceded 36 goals, and the 04 team conceded 26 goals.
Hey, but there was a team between that didn't win the league in '99. We conceded 18 goals that season as well.
Yeah,
we did win the league.
Yeah,
true. That is very true. But I think they were just an amazing team. You know, I mean, I still to this day get angry about the fact that George Graham doesn't get the credence and credit that he deserves. How the hell that man has not got a statue outside the ground?
I don't know.
That's a bloody disgrace.
No, I don't know.
Yeah, I hear people say,
I think he's got links with Tottenham. It's the only thing I can think of.
He has to get a statue. DJ, I mean, come on, man. I hear people saying, you know, that this clown of a manager, if he won the Champions League, he deserves a statue. Fuck off.
No
chance. No. George Graham, when you look at what George Graham won in the 9 years he was managing.
Players he had, let's be honest.
Fact.
You know, he's buying players from Stoke, he's buying players from Norwich, he's buying players from like Watford. You know what I mean? He ain't going and buying players from like, you know. Oh yeah, crazy. But yeah. And then we had the next league championship, didn't we?
Yeah.
After the 91.
Well, 97, 98, of course.
Yeah.
We have a certain Mr. Wenger has joined us from Japan in 98.
We actually started that season pretty strongly as well, if you remember rightly. Yeah. Remember the game? But I think, and that's where I think we began to remember in that season. Ian Wright finally broke Keith Bash's record, 4-1 game against 4-1 against Bolton Wanderers.
Yeah,
and then he got an injury just after December, and I think that's when the team moved away from Ian Wright.
Mm.
But that season we started pretty well in the league. You know, beating West Ham 4-1, 4-0. You know, we had the game against Leicester City, drew 3-3. How that referee, how they got all that injury time, only they know. But 3 great goals by Bergkamp. And then we went on a bit of a lull after beating Man United. Went on a bit of a lull where we lost Liverpool at home, lost to Blackburn.
Yeah, very similar to the 89.
Yeah, I thought, you know what? I thought, right, it's gone now. And then for some reason, I don't know what happened, but after losing at home to Blackburn, we just came out of traps. We started to utilise Nicholas Anelka. Nicholas Anelka was unplayable. Petit and Vieira became a partnership.
Mm.
You know, the George Graham's defence became like a wall of attrition with leaders, nasty leaders. Des Bergkamp was probably playing the best football he's ever played in his career.
Yeah.
Ajax in match 9 and Holland, that season, 97, 98, he was playing his best football. He's unplayable. I think he got the football's rightest player of the year in the PFA, rightly so. So those are the times when I thought, you know what? And we all loved Arsene Wenger.
But we only scored 68 goals that season.
Yeah, we did, but you know, we were ready for a win at Old Trafford. The way we went to Old Trafford and actually completely bossed the game was like a thing of beauty. But you know what? One of the
went there with injuries, Kenny.
Yeah, but you know the difficult things we did. We had so many games in hand where the pressure was on us to win them all.
Yeah, it was a different type of pressure, wasn't it?
Yeah, because
we weren't playing catch up. We was having to win our games in end. But yeah.
Derby at home, Emmanuel Petit, a 20-yarder. Wimbledon away, Christopher Ray.
Yeah,
from about 10 yards out, gets one of the goals. Newcastle, we beat them 5-1. Factory Vieira hits the top of the net. We smashed Wimbledon 5-0. Yeah. These are the games that kind of done it. I think even there was a game against Crystal Palace when Jules Gramondi scored a volley. Those are sort of like games that won us the league. And then obviously
point.
Barnsley away. Dirty Spur count again. So, yeah, that was a great team.
Yeah, no, that was a good team.
Yeah, I mean, Colton, yes, he did go to Spurs, but I don't think that matters because we got him as a manager from Millwall. So I just don't understand. I think it's disrespectful to the man, personally, but I just see some of his comments here. I think Christopher says Colton Connor still should have a statue for what he did at Arsenal. Absolutely.
Yeah.
If you look at what he actually achieved in that 9 years, it's more than what Wenger did in 21.
Yeah.
But, hey, Colton says, I'm not an Arsenal fan. That's up to the Arsenal fans. Yeah, it's a big debate, mate. It's a big debate. It just, I find it annoying. Christopher says, Jez, would you say what would it take for Arteta to deserve a statue for you? 3 Premier Leagues, 3 more FA Cups, and maybe a European trophy. He doesn't deserve anything right now. Sorry. Richard says, Colton Connor, yeah, he did to stick 2 fingers up at the Arsenal board because he felt they did not back him over the bung scandal. Yeah, George Graham. Yeah, I mean, that's an interesting debate. I've had this debate with a Spurs fan on many a times. If you think when Lord Sugar was the owner of Spurs and you had Terry Venables, are you telling me they weren't playing a naughty game? Are you telling me that? Knowing what they're about, them two? I'm sorry, Lord Sugar, you don't become a millionaire by being nice. Sorry, don't happen. Don't happen.
The thing is, in that day and age, guys, everyone was getting a bung. There's one. Even the kit man was getting a fee. Everyone was involved in football was getting some sort of fee. Brian Clough, George Graham shouldn't have been the only person found guilty of taking bungs.
No.
And Brian Clough shouldn't have been the only manager accused of taking bungs. They should have all been in the dock. All of them should have been in the dock. As far as I'm concerned, because they're all at it.
You know, you're quite correct. Absolutely bang on that one. I mean, look, come on. George Graham, yeah, he got done by the FA. Fair play, fair play, fair play. I think that's like bullshit in the fact that the club, I'm talking about Arsenal, should recognise what he did for this club. But are we trying to make out this is super, no corruption Arsenal Football Club? Because if you want to say that, I'm not saying you say that. If Arsenal fans want to say that, we had the most corrupt football club in the early 1900s. Henry Norris got banned from football for life for corruption when he was actually illegally got out that hole to get Arsenal back into Division 1, right? When he was the director, one of the directors of the Athletic News, sports magazine. It was partly because of that that Arsenal got back into Division 1 when they shouldn't have done. It should have been stayed.
But there's another story as well, which Arsenal fans don't really tell, but I'm going to say it anyway. All right? I'm going to say it. Fact is, Terence, George Graham, for what he put into Arsenal, in fact, should always have a statue. It should have been up for debate. And that's just not an opinion, that's just a fact. Getting back to our discussion regarding Arsenal's and skullduggery. Do you remember when Spurs were about to be thrown at the FA Cup and they were about to get be deducted points in '94? Alan Sugar won the case because of a loan scandal where they were loaning players money in order that it wasn't actually a loan, it was actually a bung in order that their taxes be paid. So they were loaning them money to pay for their taxes, but weren't asking for the money back because that's part of the deal. And it's actually illegal. Well, guess which club Spurs got the idea from? 3 guesses.
Arsenal.
3 guesses. Say no more. You think about all the players, all those players who played in the 70s and 80s. Yeah? And who was paying for their tax? Who was paying for their taxes? You know, not deduct and giving them money for their taxes and saying we don't have to give the money back. We just we'll find a way around it. Eh? Those players in the 70s, at a particular club.
Mm.
So when you say certain clubs were only dirty and early on, how about fast forwarding it all the way back to the 80s and 90s?
Exactly.
The thing is, this comment here, I'm not going to try and pronounce the name because I won't get it. Norris, lol, no evidence of that. Go and look it up, mate. Henry Norris.
Check it out, Norris. Yeah, it's all there.
He was a director of Arsenal Football Club and also a director of the Athletic newspaper.
Yes.
He put out a poll to say who should be voted back into Division 1 when Arsenal had been relegated back into Division 2, and Tottenham were also going to be kicked out, even though they ended up 4th from bottom. Bit odd. So yes, there's a lot of evidence about the fact that there was corruption in that, and he was a season later banned by the FA from football because they deemed it as corruption in the fact that he mitigated a poll on behalf of Arsenal Football Club to get them back into the league. Anyway, let's jump on because we've got to wind up very quickly. He was banned by corruption to Arsenal. Sorry, go and research it, mate. I'm not having a go at you, but I've got books. I've got a book on it sitting there. Gives all the information about it. It's sat on this bed here. It gives all the facts and figures about it. Anyway, let's move it on to the 0102, of course, where again won the league, 26 wins, 9 lost 3, 79-4 away against 36, 87 points. Comparing that, if you look at that, comparing that, right, to the 03-04 Invincibles, where we won 26, drew 12, lost 0, scored less than the year before, 73, conceded less, and ended up at 90 points. Quite weird stats, that really.
Yeah. If you notice in that 02 season, we were unbeaten away from home. We lost 3 home games.
Yeah.
Firstly to Leeds United, 2-0. 2-1. Mike Viduka got the winner. And a game where Leeds United were always a yard faster than us. Then we had a mad game against Charlton, where Jason Ewell got a hat trick. Jason Ewell got an hat trick, and a guy called Johansson scored one. I think Jensen scored a chipped goal. I think Jason Ewell got a couple of goals, and there's a guy called Johansson who got one of the goals, and a guy called Jensen just chipped. Yeah. I think it was in goal. Was it Taylor in goal or Richard Wright? One of them was in goal anyway.
Richard Wright, I think it was.
Yeah, we lost 4-2.
4-2. That's when we scored that cheeky back heel, wasn't it?
Yeah. No, I think it was the year afterwards against Villa. I think it's Villa. Yeah. Against Charlton. It was a year afterwards against Charlton. Yeah. 3 years afterwards against Charlton. But yeah, we lost 2-1. We lost 2-1 for 4-2, and then there was a mad game against Newcastle where Henry chased off the Graham Pole, isn't it? When they beat us 3-1.
Yes.
Remember that game?
Oh, jeez.
Brilliant game of football. Newcastle had Craig Bellamy, Lauren Lebert got one of the goals, Alan Shearer got
Bellamy was on fire that day.
Yeah. And it was basically pace against pace.
Yeah.
But apart from that, we were unbeaten away from home after that.
Yeah, it was good. It was good away. Yeah, it was a very, very good away season, and they were very similar to the 04-02 seasons. Really, they weren't. You know, obviously. Yeah, I mean, what can we say? It seems a million miles away now. Unfortunately,
is basically the last time we won a league title, 21 years ago.
Yeah.
About to be 22 years ago. So I hear the people that tell me we've under Arteta we've progressed and everything. And have we really? Because we have.
It doesn't wash no more, does it, Chiz? Because
No.
simple reason is that I told on the panel on DG's show, and I'm going to tell you guys now, although DJB was on that panel, I spoke to 2 ex-players, one from Liverpool, a Danish international, and one an Englishman who plays for Arsenal. And obviously, the Arsenal player was actually gutted by what happened, but he was accepting of the fact that the better team on the day was PSG and won fair and square. I tried to lift his spirits, basically me, but he wasn't too hopeful of our chances of getting through to the final. He's very, very pessimistic. He's going to be he's not going to go out there in Paris. He's going to be working for Arsenal, doing it like that, just working in the studio at their football club. The Liverpool player, ex-Liverpool player, we talked about mentality of big clubs, and he never corrected me when I said to him, "There's a wealth of difference between Arsenal's ambition and Liverpool's ambition. There's a wealth of difference between next season. If Slot finishes 15 points behind the leaders, like we have, Liverpool fans be on his back, despite the fact that he's won the league, and we should give him credit on the back because Liverpool have to win something every year. That's standard. That's the standards. That even when Liverpool went all those years away winning the title, your goal was the title, was to win the European Cup, and that you're never satisfied. And that look at Ollie Slot. Liverpool fans were the most pessimistic people when it came to their own team. Yet it was only him and the players, the only ones who demanded they win the league. What did he say? A lot of people said someone up to him, Jay Redknapp, and said, "Yeah, we all would have been happy with a top 4 place." And Arne Slot went, "Well, that wouldn't be fair on the players. No, the players have at my disposal."
It's all about mentality, and unfortunately, while this manager is accepted as a serial bridesmaid and not the bride, then unfortunately we're never going to get over the line.
Don't forget, there's acolytes.
I think the ties. Getting back to the earlier question, I did see it in the chat a while ago. I personally think the tie's done. I think that PSG will turn the screw even harder in the second leg. My heart obviously wants Arsenal to win, but my football brain says we're not going to. And I think the tie's done. I'm sorry, guys. I hope I'm wrong, and you can all come back to me and go, "Oh, DJB," look, and I'd be jumping up and down with you guys and raising a glass.
Jess, do you believe that?
Personally, I believe we're done. Yeah, I believe we're done.
I'm afraid, mate. I think going to the part of France is going to be too much. After watching what we did at home the other night at the Emirates, they're a very, very good team. Even if I'm going to say this, even if we did win there 2-0 and get it over the line, I think Inter Milan. I'm going to watch it tonight. The Barca game. I think they'll be too good for us anyway. But I'd love us to get to a Champions League final.
Oh yeah, 100%. I want to be proven wrong, but
I'll be going. I said this last night.
It's only my football brain. It's what I see, and it's what I've seen during the season, and what I've seen this manager come up in big games. I mean, people say, "Yeah, but Real Madrid was a big game. That was only a quarter final. We weren't expected to be in that sort of position."
I agree with you both.
It was only a quarter final, but in big games, this manager has proven over the years that he has missed out. And these players in big games have proven.
If you notice with Mikel Arteta, and it's an awful thing to say because it's not, but it's the truth, and it's not just Mikel Arteta; it's this team in itself. Whenever we ever played against a team, especially a big team that's played out of our skins, and still been able to beat them. Never.
We've had to be flawless to win. We had to go to St James Park and be absolutely flawless to claw them 2 goals back. What you got to remember is when we went to St James Park in the Carabao Cup and we were 2-0 down, we never looked like scoring.
No.
We didn't look like scoring.
No,
and this is going to be similar.
But two weeks ago in Madrid, we did look like scoring.
Yeah. I mean, it's just, I want to be proven wrong. But, Jez...
I want to look, mate. I am praying and hoping next Wednesday, right? That I'm proving.
I don't think we got the performance, Jez. The reason why is that I think we all know.
Look at our recent form.
Exactly, but I think we all know how it's going to go against Bournemouth. We're going to look at our walking wounded. We know Timber was limping, so he's not going to play. We're going to play Benny White. We're going to play Shevchenko. And then we feel that we're going to be forced to bring on some of our big guns. But we know that even if these guys didn't want to be at it on Saturday, they probably, even if they tried to be at it, it wouldn't happen. I think what we saw against Crystal Palace segued into the PSG game.
I honestly think that this manager. This PSG team, it's a massive opportunity then to win their first Champions League. They know that if they score first, they know they've only got to score. That's it.
Well, they're going to play the same way as they played last week. They'll be foolish to play any other way. Get on the front foot, get an early goal, and make Arsenal work. That's their best bet. They'll be fools to even sit back.
Yeah. No, it's crazy. It's crazy.
I think they're going to actually go for it.
Jezza, I've got to go.
We're going to wrap it up, boys.
Do you know what?
Ken, are you on it? I think you're on a show tonight later.
Yeah,
I am later. But at the end of the day, I'm going to do what you do. I'm going to take your advice, and I'm going to do my own scouting report, scouting mission of Internazionale and Barcelona, because you never know with football.
Yeah, no, you never know in football.
So I'm taking your advice, and I will be doing my own amateur scouting mission.
I've got to do.
I want to watch a game of football.
Yeah,
I've got to do a little family thing. But listen, Jez, thank you very much. This History Channel always brings me joy, my friend. Kenny, what can I say? It's been and the chat as well. Apart from the absolute idiot that gladly got blocked, even though we've got to get Yeti back. But all the chat, we've got a wonderful little community here on the History Channel, and it's lovely. And I really enjoy.
I've got a perverse idea.
Really enjoy being on it.
I've got a very perverse idea. We may have had a tragic European record, but we do have a European history.
Yes,
we have beat the finals.
Yes, we have
Championship finals. We've beat the European Cup winners finals.
Yes,
and we have beat UEFA Cup finals.
We have. And I remember the Cup Winners' Cup final.
But some of those European campaigns do bring back memories as well, especially the Champions League campaign in 06.
Yeah, no, it's been brilliant.
Anyway, got to do the outro. These gentlemen have got to move on.
Bless up, everyone. Stay safe.
Bless up, everyone.
Enjoy the game tonight. If you're watching it, it'll be a cracker.
See you later.